Hi, I'm Bridget.
And I'm Chris.
No, Chris. Let's redo. You say I'm Chris, and then I say,
Why is
and
that bad?
I'm Maddie.
Yeah. Oh my god, we can't
It's
have
a
two
comma.
ands.
It's
Okay.
a comma, not a...
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Start over.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bridget.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Maddie. Welcome to Baddy Breakdowns, where we hang out, have fun, and play games all the way to the end. Today, we're going to talk about Deathloop. We'll give you the breakdown from its... For some reason in my head, I read Deathloop, and my brain was like, that's not a real game. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Definitely is.
It definitely is.
It definitely is, and it's the game that we're talking about. We'll give you the breakdown from its creation to its critical reception, and then we'll take you on a deep dive into the game as we share our own experiences and opinions while playing it. We'll close with if we recommend it, who we'd recommend it to, and last but not least, our personal rating. With that, let's kill some visionaries.
That was a really medium one,
Aw.
I feel like.
Okay. With that, let's...
Break the loop.
Break the Loop is pretty okay.
That one's better. God damn it.
Welcome, Chris, to your contribution already.
Yay, I'm helping already.
Okay, with that, let's protect the loop. I'll do the opposite.
Oh,
Oh, interesting. Okay, we're gonna see how this goes.
Controversial choices.
Okay. I have the game description today, so I'm just going to launch into that. Deathloop is a next-gen FPS from Arcane Leon, the award-winning studio behind Dishonored. In Deathloop, two rival assassins are trapped in a mysterious time loop on the island of Blackreef, doomed to repeat the same day for eternity. I think it's fine.
It's pretty
it's
good
fine.
and short.
I think they are banking on Dishonored.
Don't like when people talk about, like the studio and their game descriptions. But
So counterpoint.
yeah.
As somebody for whom Dishonored is probably one of my top 3 favorite games of all time.
Oh my gosh.
That's all it takes to make me interested in the game.
Okay.
So...
You're right. You're right. We should play that one, Bridget. Have you played it?
I streamed it live on the Xbox stream at some point, but it was, I think, Dishonored 2, not the first Dishonored. So I have not actually played
if
the
it's
first
like
one.
a top 3, we should play that one.
Everything I read said Dishonored was better than this game, even for the people who liked this game. Is that true, Chris?
They're very different. Dishonored is a lot less about the story and a lot more about player agency and kind of perfection as someone that plays it a lot. Like, when I play Dishonored, I am one of the few people that has done an entire playthrough of the game without any killing. Like, I've done a pacifist run of Dishonored, and that is like many hours of like perfection and planning type of playstyle, as opposed to Deathloop is different than that.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do this game pacifist.
I
I think that's quite literally not
It's
possible.
sort of against the point,
Yeah.
yes.
Literally opposite.
But a lot of the same like DNA is there, which I guess I'm skipping ahead to later parts of our discussion.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay. Game made in how, Bridget?
Game Made in How is a really nice name for this section, so thank you for that introduction. All right, so
I'm rusty, okay? I'm rusty. We haven't done this in a while.
And this is also our first 3-person podcast, so we'll see.
Yeah, this is fun. I like it.
Yeah. Okay, so as mentioned, this game was made by Arcane Leon. Leon as in France.
Mm-hmm.
So it's over in France. I wanted to very briefly, before I get into the content that I had from a couple of videos, mention that there were emphasis, 2 Arcane studios, an Arcane Leon and an Arcane Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And Arcane Austin was shut down in May this year, May 2024, after Redfall. May it rest in peace. did not do super well. What is interesting that I didn't understand is when Redfall's studio, Arcane Austin, was shut down, I thought that it was shut down, and what I had heard was, oh, well, Arcane Leon is the good one. So, like, whatever, it's fine. But when I was reading, saw that Arcane Leon made Dishonored, yes, but Arcane Austin made Prey, which was also a ridiculously successful, like, version of their games, or not version, but, like, one of the games in their repertoire. So I don't really feel like it's fair to say, oh, well, Arcane Leon was the good one and Arcane Austin was the bad one. I don't think that's fair at all. And I just thought I'd say that this game specifically was made by the people who made Dishonored, not necessarily by the people who made Prey and Redfall. The other thing that I would mention before we get into some of this, how it's made, is there is so much content on how this game was made. I did not watch all of it. I am so sorry, because I assumed this would be like any other game that we had, where I'd find a documentary or two, a couple of news articles, and great, that's it. This studio had multiple talks with something called Develop Brighton. Those were like hour plus long. They had hour plus GDC talks.
Oh, wow.
And there was also like a no clip interview, which is the thing that I started with. But there was like a lot of content, a lot of articles, a lot of videos. And so if there is, I will not cover at all all of the content that exists out there, because I did not watch 5 hours of
I wouldn't want you
to. So that's what y'all are gonna get. So I'm gonna start with the no clip piece, which was an interview with Dinga Bakaba, who is the studio director and co-creative director of Arcane Leon.
Okay.
So in this no clip documentary, which we'll link in the notes, the Dinga takes us through some of how it was started, what kinds of things they focused on at the beginning, what made some of the development hard. A couple of the things that were really interesting to me was, one, they had actually started this game with pretty much the exact same concept of what it ends up being, which I don't feel like happens very often. I feel like usually it's something and then it shifts around a lot. But the concept was 4 days at a time. So instead of 1 day, it was 4 days. So that is different. But it was 4 days at a time, 4 times of the day, and 4 areas. And that's just what it was. And the kind of gameplay was pretty similar. Like the actual loop itself was similar. And so while things changed, it was very similar to how it started, which I don't think happens very often. I'll also say that not in this no clip documentary, but in an article I read, it also mentioned that Deathloop was started because the studio didn't want to work on Dishonored 3. They were like, I don't want to work.
They're like, I really
on this
want
right
to
now.
do something different.
Yeah.
That's totally fair.
So yeah, it's totally fair. We also saw that, I think, with oh man, was it The Last of Us studio? I can't remember. There was another
Naughty Dog.
Yeah, where they were like, I didn't want to work on this thing, so I need to do literally anything else.
It was like Uncharted.
Yes. Yeah.
Baldur's Gate folks at Larian are apparently doing the same thing right now. They decided they didn't want to make the next Baldur's Gate, and so they're doing a different thing.
Yeah. It's just, people get, I think, maybe it's one, stressful. The bar's very, very high. This seems to happen pretty frequently. Yeah. So they put off Dishonored 3, they went to Deathloop. It was intended to be a pretty scoped, smaller project. Obviously ended up being a little bit bigger than that, but it's still fairly smaller than maybe some of their other larger franchises like Dishonored. The thing that I wanted to note from the person who is giving the interview in the no clip, he mentioned this game and other games made by Arcane being a part of this new genre called the immersive sims. And I had vaguely read about this previously, but the concept of an immersive sim that Arcane theoretically does very, very well is that you literally are the thing that you are, and the world built around you is made to allow you to have this freedom and player choice with how you approach things as this thing, whatever you are, whether it's a thief in this game, whether you're, a cult trying to break the loop, you can have all of the freedom that you can to make those decisions the way that you want to make them. So it's all about immersion and simulating who it is that you are playing. I don't know if Hitman would fall in this category. I don't know what people consider an immersive sim or not.
It kind of feels like maybe a little bit more of a specific RPG subgenre.
Maybe?
Because, yeah. I've heard of immersive sim before, and yeah, to me it just seems like RPG. Is that not what role-playing is?
No, so, I mean, I've never heard this term before, but as you say it, it's sticking out in my head a lot, the differences between these games and others. There are definitely RPG elements. You're designing your character, you're making choices and etc. But if you think about something like Skyrim, which in my head is, I guess, the definitive RPG, whether or not that's correct.
Western RPG. I feel like definitive Western.
Yeah,
RPG.
Western RPG. When you think about Skyrim and other RPGs of that kind, even Fallout to a certain extent, there's an implication that the character is you. You are playing how you would play in that universe.
Is The Witcher not an RPG?
I gave up on The Witcher. It was so boring.
Yeah, I also gave up on The Witcher partway through. So.
I don't know why people
like
like it.
But it's a set character, and that's an RPG. Is the difference that it's a set character that you're embodying in an immersive sim?
I think you're embodying a character here, and not only are you embodying a character, but you are not given a choice about your goal or your target. But you are given infinite choice about how you accomplish that goal or target as the character you're embodying.
Okay. That helps.
So Hitman definitely feels like an immersive sim.
Yeah.
But I would argue that I don't know how much Deathloop was. Okay, I think it was a little, but I don't know that it is as extreme as I would expect it to be, which we can talk about later. We'll talk about later.
I've done a lot more variations of it than you have, so I think it gets there, but
okay,
we can talk about options later.
We'll get there. Okay, so to keep us moving along, they did in fact call this game a murder puzzle or a reverse Cluedo or Cluedo. I don't know how people pronounce that, but Clue, like the board game Clue. And I kind of get where they were going with this.
Because you have to puzzle out how to get them all in one day.
Exactly. And so they very much so saw it that way in their head. The biggest issues for the actual creation of the game itself really actually seemed to be around the time loop and how much that just made everything so much harder. So this is where I'll talk about some of the time loop design from the no clip, but also some of the time loop design from the GDC talk, or one of the GDC talks that I watched. I didn't watch the full thing because it was long, but I got maybe 40 minutes into it.
Mm-hmm.
So with this time loop, you end up with a lot of things just being harder. So the first example they gave was the tutorial. So I'm sure we can talk about it, but the tutorial in this game is 3 hours long. You don't actually get into the real game until about 3 hours in. And they acknowledge that. They call it a 3-hour guided tour is what they called it.
I like it.
Yeah, and the reason that they approached it that way is because they said in a lot of their previous games, it was easy to have a specific set area in which you could tutorial, and then you go from that area with its own map, a thing that you could force them to interact with different objects to learn how this stuff works, into the real maps. But with this game, because so many of the concepts needed to be introduced inside of those 4 areas of the town, there wasn't a separate map that you could have. And with the time loop, it had to be identical each day. Otherwise, it didn't make sense. So there was no there's a barrel here one day and not here the next day. Because it's literally the exact same day. So they had to either think about how they would build a separate tutorial area, which they did a very, very small bit. The very, very beginning is an area we don't see again, which is where Juliana is chilling. But for the rest of it, they're like, crap, we have to build in this tutorial into the world itself, and it can't be a special world. It has to be the same. And that came with a lot of design challenges. So they came up with this 3-hour guided tour, and they had to try and come up with all the different ways they would give this guidance in a way that didn't require you to be force-fed through the actual area itself. And they also wanted to continue to give you that freedom, right? Because you finish that very, very early tutorial section, very small within Juliana's space, but then immediately you can go to 4 different places in the morning, right? Like
Totally.
all of a sudden you've moved somewhere else. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing that they did try was no guidance at all. They're like, okay, maybe we just let people wing it. Like, let's just see how they do it. Like the FromSoft, the way that they do their games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they said it user tested so poorly. They were like, it was the worst. Everyone hated it. So they got rid of that idea.
Nightmare. That's like a really good way for me to drop a game.
Exactly. Yeah. They got rid of it very, very quickly. The other thing that was challenging because of the time loop was how to tell a narrative, which I'm sure we'll get into. But they had these goals that, one, you needed to actually feel like you're in this time loop. So they needed all of the things around you to be supporting the fact that you're in a time loop. So, for instance, you hear the NPCs all the time have awareness of the fact that this is the first day, being really excited about it, or vice versa. I know there's like a part in the story where you literally hear them like fighting and they shoot him and then immediately after he's like, whatever, he'll wake up tomorrow, which is kind of sad when you think about it because they're stuck in one day. But the loop itself needed to constantly be reiterating back to the player that you were in a loop. And then the other piece was, even though you're in a time loop doing the exact same day over and over again, players had to feel this sense of progress. So that was their second like narrative goal, is to have that progress within the time loop. And so the way that they did that is by creating the amnesia at the beginning of the game. They wanted to make sure that every single thing that Colt learned, he learned it at the same time that you as the player learned it. It didn't feel like there were past things that you missed, and so you could progress through the loop in the same way that Colt would because of the recurring amnesia. Now, the other thing that they kind of focused on with this loop and with the narrative pieces is that the actual characters themselves were developed based on their actions, the actions that you see them physically do in the game, or you hear them do, or whatever you see through their mails or different things throughout the environment. But they actively had no room for character arcs because there was a time loop and there was no memory. So they could not bake character arcs into each of these individual like characters, these visionaries that people will get to. Yeah, it just wouldn't have worked. And so the characters themselves, they try to describe very basically through the actions that we see, which is interesting, and I'd like to talk about that more when we dig in, but that's their approach.
There is one little bit of they don't really build a character arc with it, but you do get a snapshot of history from all of them months before they joined the Aeon program. So you at least have like, you have one piece of historical snapshot of each of the visionaries in the past.
Yeah, but you can't like tell a full story, I think is the point.
Yeah, you definitely can't.
Yeah. And then the last thing here that I'll mention is they explicitly took it as a goal to not explain the magic of the time loop. They did not want to explain everything. They wanted to leave it up to player interpretation, which we can also talk about.
I kind of thought that was going to maybe be the twist. So that's interesting.
We'll talk more about it later. I think this will be a little bit of a fun episode near the end.
I have a very deep theory about this.
Well, Chris has theories. I have thoughts, and I am excited to see that mix with Maddie's predictions and how that lines up with where she's at. Because I don't know, we've got a lot of places. I think we have fun places to go. So with that, I'll end it. I don't think there was too much more to add. They did, at one point in time, have a complex melee system they got rid of for performance reasons because of the multiplayer aspect of the game. It made things like parrying really, really hard to effectively do with the delay between like online players. So they got rid of that, and they just have a very powerful kick, which I think is really funny because I didn't use the kick the whole time. So hilarious.
Oh, they have a kick?
Exactly. They apparently have a kick. I never used it. Chris is nodding. He's like, yeah, they had a kick.
I didn't even know the kick existed my first time playing through the game.
Okay, there you go.
Even though I do now, I still don't use it. I mean, there's also a melee, right?
Yeah. I'm much more of like a sniper, like long shot type of person.
Yeah.
Anyways, so.
Yeah, but anyway, giant kick. And I think other than that, there are a lot of like smaller things, but I think that's the big stuff. It is interesting to see as we dig into it, what they tried to do around this time loop versus what they succeeded in doing. I'm excited to talk about. But with that, I think I'll hand it back to Maddie for critical reception.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be pretty quick. So it's mostly positive on Steam, so not overwhelmingly positive, but mostly positive, which is still good. And an 88 Metacritic score, which was high.
That's good.
But a 6.8 user score on Metacritic, which was like quite a variance that I am going to talk about briefly. And I think that it'll be, again, I think it's going to make for an interesting discussion. So on Steam, all of the negative reviews were mostly about bugs, actually, and like unstableness of the game, especially with like the Juliana multiplayer aspect. So a bunch of people were like, couldn't enjoy this game until I turned that off and just did like the AI Juliana, like and also some frustration with the multiplayer Juliana, like some people getting like OP weapons and then invading like new players, and how that ended up like not being fun and like not balanced. So those are the main negatives on Steam. Which is interesting because then Metacritic's negatives were actually very different. And I think it's because Metacritic's were mainly about the PlayStation 5. So I wonder if it's the PC like build that had some bugs and unstableness versus the PlayStation negatives were much more about the main theme was that the first half of this game was really fun. And then the second half of this game took like a big dip. And it's like, it was really fun when you like are learning new things, but then there's a point in the game, and I think I'm about to reach this point in the game, which is why I think it's really interesting that I was reading this, where you stop learning like brand new things that are that interesting, and you're literally just looking for like one code or like one thing at a time, and it gets more tedious and like more repetitive. And that was a theme of like started great, how to drop off, started great, how to drop off.
Which is a risk with the time loop game, right? Like I feel like that's a high risk you take on is repetitiveness when you try to bake that just into the loop itself.
Yeah,
you know?
and I thought it was really interesting too, because I feel like I'm probably about to hit the point in the game where I've met all the visionaries. And so then at that point, it's like, I bet I'm just going to be repeating, trying to get the last pieces of it. This is my guess, right? Of like the last pieces of the puzzles, putting it together, right? Because like I have, the two guys at night are together, so I can get both of them at once, and then the two people are hooking up, and so I can get them at once. And like, I think there's going to be a point where I have to put that all together, but then it seems like what people were running into is once that there's actually a big chunk of the game that is that. Even after
I don't actually feel that way about it.
No, so
and that's what we'll discuss.
This is the negatives, right? Look, I'm just giving y'all like the mixed pieces, which is why I do think it's interesting because I haven't reached that point, so I can't even comment on it because I think I'm like just about to reach that point.
I honestly think I disagreed with like all of the negatives that you said from both Steam and Metacritic.
I would like to say that Chris is wildly biased. I would like the world to know.
Biased by enjoying the game, which is not biased. That's the whole point.
And then I will say that a lot of critics gave it 10 out of 10, saying it was really dynamic, it was engaging, and it was like good.
Okay. I have a question, though. If the negatives from the users were coming from people who said it was primarily the second half of the game, we know, Maddie, from doing this podcast, that most people do not play all the way through these games when they review them.
You know what? You are so right. Critics
and
don't
so it's
finish
very
the games.
easy. Exactly. They do not finish these games.
I feel like if I stopped right now, I would have a very positive view of the game, which we'll talk about.
Well, so I think I have a different theory. I think it's more that the game changes.
It does
The
change.
first half of Deathloop is unique to Deathloop. The second half of Deathloop is Dishonored. And the piece that the Steam reviews were complaining about is multiplayer PvP.
Yeah.
And so I myself am a Deathloop player, a Mystery player, a Dishonored player, and a PvP player. And so I was okay with and enjoyed all of those pieces of the game.
Yeah. That's super fair.
Right.
He was option
so people
D,
that are different
all
kinds of players
Yeah.
probably experience different pieces differently.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so there's the reviews. It's interesting though, because it does feel like it's hitting on some criticisms that if you disagree or agree, it is like kind of the things that are like the pieces of the game that is going to be very just like opinion based almost.
Well, I'd like to think of this like the Tunic effect, kind
Yeah.
of. Like, a lot of people hate or love the first half of Tunic or the second half of Tunic. And that's because they're two separate games.
Yeah.
And I feel like people complain a lot
I mean, Animal
when
Well
in
like
reality,
that,
it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, there's two halves of the game, and one or the other might not be right for you, but that
Totally.
doesn't make it bad at what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
super interesting. Yeah, I like that. Let's get into it. We're having
Yeah.
We're
I think
early.
this is going to be a spicy discussion today. I'm excited.
Okay. Bridget.
Do we want Chris to? Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, I can go first.
Chris, do you remember your first impressions of the game? When did you play
I
it? When it first
vaguely
came out?
do. No, I played it a year later after PlayStation exclusivity ended.
Oh.
And it came to PC. And I went into it first off as a massive Arcane Leon Dishonored fan.
Yeah.
And so I was already expecting greatness. I would say I am also somebody that really appreciates the retro futurist like
I do
80s
like
style
that
aesthetic.
vibe.
Yeah.
Yes, I do like that vibe.
And so both of those things put together felt like a match made in heaven for me. And I would say for largely it did that those both paid off, and I did really enjoy it for
Yeah.
that. It is one of my favorite games of all time. I think my
Wait, this
my
game is?
first reaction, yes,
Mhm.
this one
Is it in your
also,
top 3
yes.
like Dishonored?
Maybe not top 3.
Okay,
I'd
okay,
say
okay,
like
okay.
top 5.
Okay.
Like I got a couple games right at the top.
Yeah.
It's near there.
Okay.
I think my first major surprise at it was a positive one. I didn't expect it to be quite as sandboxy as it was. I didn't expect it to be quite as open world as it was. And I ended up really enjoying that about it, but I think that was the first thing that surprised me. Dishonored is pretty open world as well, but it's a very on rails open world where you're going through like a zone at a time, and that zone has a million ways of going through it. But this was more like, here's the game, have fun.
Yeah, like
and I did not expect
pick
that.
a zone, try it, see what's new at this time of day in this zone or
Exactly. Yeah, I just didn't see that coming, but I did really end up enjoying it, so it was a pleasant surprise, I think.
Nice. All right, Bridget, go
Yeah.
for it.
Okay, so mine's going to be vaguely different in that I feel like, and Chris, you can correct me on this if I'm forgetting, I feel like it was like a year and a half ago that I tried this game for the first time.
Yeah, I've been trying to convince you to play this game for like 2 years now, I think.
And so I picked it up to try it. Although I will mention that I have a really hard time like trying things when people keep telling me to do them, because then they get too big in my head and then I worry. And so there was a little bit of that, but also I picked it up and I started playing it. And I vaguely remember being intrigued a lot by the story. I absolutely loved the like comic art style of like the cutscenes, the intros, all that kind of stuff.
Same.
That was wild. I absolutely loved it. The thing that I think happened for me is I started, and I think I probably got 2 hours into it. I didn't make it through the guided section. I think is what happened, is I didn't make it through the guided section for myself.
I remember you quitting thinking it was going to be entirely linear.
Yeah.
And not being excited about that.
Yeah, because all it was in the first couple of hours was a pretty linear storyline. Do this next, you should go get this, blah, blah, blah. And I know that theoretically I had an open world to go do whatever I wanted in, but I felt like I was required to kind of go down this path, which I don't think is the intended way to play. And I do think once the guided stuff opens up, it's not like that at all, really. But I didn't make it far enough, and I wasn't excited enough about understanding the world at that point in time to continue playing. So I actually dropped off and then picked it back up this summer to actually finish the playthrough. And I picked up exactly where I left off, finish the guided section, which I was apparently very close to finishing,
Mhm.
and then finish the rest. And so I, like, for me, my first impression was actually like, oh, this wasn't what I anticipated or expected. But it might have also been, Chris, like, the descriptions you had given me did point to something that was so much more than the guided section.
I was
So I
describing the
thought,
rest of the game.
yeah. And so when you described it that way, and then I played the beginning part, I'm like, that's not what this is. Chris, Jesus Christ. And then I stopped playing. So.
Okay, so
yeah.
I will say I went into this with no expectations. I didn't look up anything about it, which I think probably helped me.
Mhm.
I did think it was really funny, and I liked the aesthetics. My issue actually was that I got dizzy. So my first impression was this game made me really, really dizzy. And I talked to Bridget about it, and she Googled it for me, which I should have done.
That's right. I'm really
Which
good
should've
with
been,
the
like,
Google.
first thing I did, but instead I was like, I'm really struggling with this game because it makes me really dizzy. And then she screenshotted a Reddit thread of like the settings to help with people that had motion sickness. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, this game made me dizzy, which doesn't happen to me often actually. Like this is kind of the first time it's been that bad for me. It's the head bobble. So once I did the head bobble settings off, like the head movement off, that was it. That was literally it.
You can call me a problem solver. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just really good like that.
But yeah, and I just thought it was really funny. Like I just liked the rapport that he had with Juliana, and like we dated, like the fun pithy lines of like, you know, he's like, did we date?
There's a lot of
and
really
then
good writing.
she's
yeah.
mad, and he's like, oh, we definitely dated, and I wrote that one down because that one made me laugh. And then I also thought, so I guess I'll do my opinions up until like the end of the guided section, and I just really liked the intro of the other visionaries being the Wenjis, because it was a really fun, like it was like a challenge right at the end of your guided tutorial, almost, of like, and here's your first other visionary that you have to go assassinate, and there's like 10 of them or whatever, how many there are. So then I had, like, coming out of the tutorial, I think it was a really nice ramp if you want something more guided of like, okay, now I gotta go get the Wenjis. So then my next goal was to get the Wenjis because I wanted the thing that they had, you know, like the little sucky thingy.
That was really eloquent. Residuum collector? I don't know what the actual name would be of it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Residuum, yeah.
Yeah.
Residuum?
Residuum.
Okay, residuum. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of my intro. I think it's really, and I just thought it was funny, and I thought that the setup was really clever. Like,
yeah,
the day having different things happening at different times of the day. And the different areas, and so you could do all of the different slices. And I like to your point, Bridget, I also really loved the aesthetics of like when you learn something, the summarization. I loved the cartoon that they played. Like I thought that was so much fun. Yes, it was
really nice. I love that. Yeah.
So
it also helped me as someone who, I feel like a lot of the story was told through barks and through like pieces of paper that you pick up and whatever else. So I also just enjoyed that summary just existing at all, because if you missed it, which I did miss some barks every once in a while, then at least I got the summary later if something really big happened, which is I was thankful for.
Yeah. So I liked it. I liked it right out the gate once I got the settings right.
Yeah. Do we want to intro people with like your goal of the game and like how it works? Do we want to start
and
there?
I would love for you to give it a shot, because I guess I did text you. I was like, you were like, oh, what are the theories that you have? And I was like, are there theories? But then I texted you afterwards, and I was
There's
like,
so many
now
theories.
that I think about it, it's like, well, why does Colt want to break the loop? Why does Juliana not want to break the loop? Like I thought of them like right after I texted you, because I think in my head I wasn't really focused on those aspects, or like I hadn't really given those aspects deep thought. I was like,
what even is the loop? Why does Juliana remember? Why does Colt sometimes remember?
well, so exactly.
Why does Wenji exist? There's so many questions.
Yeah. No, there ends up being, once you actually are like thinking about it, totally. And like, why does the loop exist at all? Being like another big one.
I will say, I do have a very, I think, relatively provable theory, like a string theory of Deathloop, like a universal bring it all together theory. But I did not after my first playthrough. It took multiple playthroughs and watching Bridget find some stuff that I hadn't found for me to actually put together my Deathloop string theory.
Which
Yes.
I would like to discuss at the end because that's problematic to me, but we'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, go for it, Bridget.
Okay, so I can TLDRS. So as we talked about, the beginning is fairly on rails. You immediately are introduced as not knowing what's going on. You're drunk on a beach. Or waking up after being hungover, I guess, on a beach. You're not really drunk anymore. And you are seeing these words in your vision. It's very confusing. And there's this woman, Juliana, who is talking to you. She very clearly wants you dead. And you are very, very confused. You don't really have any memories at all. Eventually, over the course of your first 3 hours, you are kind of on rails-ish. Like I said, you can go off rails if you want to, but the TLDR is that you eventually figure out that you are head of security of this area, that you, for whatever reason, you don't really know, you are like, I need to break this loop. I need to break this loop. You've seen old versions of yourself, or maybe not old, but you've seen a version of yourself that helps you out of some situations. And you're like, what the F is going on? And eventually you figure out for yourself, like you realize, like it's not really a thing, like a book that you read or whatever, but there's like a lot of different pieces that you pick up around the world. There's conversations with Juliana, words, visuals, conversations with yourself, and you figure out that to break this loop, you need to kill all of the visionaries and make your way like after you kill them all during one loop cycle, so it can't be individualized. You kill them all, you kill Juliana, you have to do all of that stuff, and then theoretically the loop will break. But you don't know why.
And in theory, kill yourself.
Yeah,
yes, but
you're
you don't know that at the beginning, do you? Like, you learn that...
I kind of figured.
You do
Okay.
know.
Okay,
Or
I wasn't
rather,
sure
I
if
don't
you
know
learned that
that
at the
they
beginning or
talk
not.
about it, but you know all the pieces.
Yeah,
of
they
it.
don't.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't talk about it explicitly, as in like you have to kill yourself necessarily. It's more that like
They talk about you being a visionary,
You're a
and
visionary.
they talk about having
Yeah.
to kill all the
You're
visionaries.
right, you're right. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was figured out at the beginning or not, but you're right. So once you figure out that that's your goal, you need to kill all of these people in one day. The game itself is actually you trying to puzzle together how you're going to do that, because you only have 4 times a day. You have a whole heckin' lot of visionaries that you need to go kill, and they're all in different places at different
how many
times.
are there? There's 8.
8,
There
not
are
including yourself.
7?
Oh,
7
okay.
plus you and
2, 3, 4,
Juliana.
5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 plus
8.
you, so 9.
Yeah. That's what you
8
said.
plus
Chris.
you.
Yeah.
I listed all of the visionaries in their paths, so don't
Nice.
worry, you guys. I've got some good ass notes here today. And then the other TLDR that I'll give maybe is on the... Do we want to do like TLDR on mechanics? That's not really a TLDR. There's a shit ton of mechanics.
There's a lot
in
of
this game.
mechanics. Yeah.
There is a lot of mechanics. So I guess I'll do like environment mechanics, and if you guys want to jump in and talk more about the actual, like the things that you do.
Sure.
Environment wise, we have a repeating day. There are, every day you wake up on this beach, there is a morning, noon, afternoon, and evening cycle where in which you can go to 4 different areas. Those 4 different areas are slightly different depending on the time of day, and if you do something earlier in the morning, it could affect how things look later in the afternoon or the evening. You keep your memories across the days. Juliana kind of does, or mostly does. I don't know if we have clarity on if she keeps all of them or not. And then you
It
have...
seems like she does to me. At
It
least.
seems like she does.
Juliana does keep all of your memory. Yeah,
Okay.
this is a whole thing we can get into later.
Okay, we'll say that she theoretically...
There's a whole thing behind this as a part of the theory.
Yeah,
the
so
theory of
she
everything.
theoretically keeps all of her memories, but everybody else doesn't know. Literally no one else... Well, okay, no, there's a side quest character that technically does.
There are exactly 3.5 characters
Yes.
that have some mechanism of keeping
Yes.
their memories.
But nobody else does. And then also at the end of the loop, you restart with all of the things that you've started with at the beginning. Like, you lose everything you haven't saved through that residuum, which is a process that Wenji, one of the visionaries, has developed. Okay, so with that, that's kind of how the general mechanics work. do you guys want to talk through maybe the like items that we have, slabs, how those work? Is that where we want to go next? Because I think that's a pretty big part of the game.
Yeah. So, like, when you kill a visionary, you essentially get... Each visionary has what's called a slab, and it's like a special power that they have, essentially. And sorry if I'm oversimplifying. But once you kill a visionary, you can take their slab and use it. So, like, the first one that you get from Juliana is like a teleportation type thing. And each...
Does everybody get that the first time? Or is that
No,
random?
it's random.
Okay.
Oh,
random.
I didn't
So
know
Juliana,
that was random.
And this is the other thing I was going to say earlier, but didn't want to get into. When people were talking about player versus player Julianas showing up in the game with high-level weapons and killing new players, that's actually a risk-reward kind of situation. Because yes, the really OP Juliana showing up is going to murder you. But if you manage to murder the OP Juliana, you have suddenly earned yourself some really high-level weapons and powers really early in the game, which is a really fun kind of balancing opportunity factor that also kind of makes different playthroughs of the game different as well, based on what you random when you run across AI or player Julianas.
So, Chris, I know you played you played real people Juliana. I played AI Juliana because I was getting annoyed that they were better than me and I couldn't progress. Maddie, what did you do?
I didn't turn it off, but I truly don't know if it was AI or not.
If you didn't turn it off, I feel like it would have defaulted to online.
Well, so it depends what time of day you play.
Right,
it depends if there are people playing Juliana.
Somebody needs to do it, right? So I think mostly
it also has a
mine...
ping limit.
I feel like mostly mine was AI, is my guess.
Yeah. So I guess the one thing that I didn't describe during the high level summary is while you were out trying to kill these visionaries, the other half of this game is a multiplayer game where you can be Juliana and jump into people's loops when they're in the same area at the same time as a visionary and try to kill Colt, which is the character that you're playing. So you are going to get frequently attacked by Juliana, whether an AI or a human player, trying to kill you and stop you from killing the visionary that's in that loop. And that's a pretty, I feel like, I would say big quote unquote chunk of the game. But I didn't interact with the Juliana portion. I watched a lot of Chris played it, but I didn't really care to play it. So
I've got a fun thing about this that I don't know how much you realized, Bridget. And Maddie, you wouldn't have at all without somebody watching with experience. So the first part of the game, you're doing a lot of exploring.
Yeah.
And that exploring is pseudo-random. You're going different places at different times of day, trying to find different things about different stuff. And it is not, like, every once in a while you get invaded by Juliana. Mm-hmm. And you don't really know why that's happening other than that it is. It's actually, as far as I know, never explicitly stated that Juliana only invades when there's a visionary present at that time and place.
Yeah, I did figure that out.
You have to, you infer that from the later in the game from the fact that Juliana's trying to protect the loop. And so she shows up when you're trying to, when you're near a visionary.
Yeah.
And so there's this point where the game and I was very excited for this, and it was exactly as exciting as I hoped. There's this point where the game transitions into more of knowing what you're doing, and you're now trying to kill visionaries, and you start fighting Juliana a lot more.
All the time.
And there was this moment where Bridget was like, God, I feel like I'm seeing Juliana so much more often now. And I was over on the side, like, giggling, laughing, like, oh, yes, there's a reason for that. It was very entertaining for me, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. But that makes a lot of sense. I've not gotten to that part of the game because I'm still like, I'm right at the end of that, like, exploration piece.
Yeah.
Yep.
But like you were saying, Maddie, the first interaction you do get is with Juliana in these slabs. Like, you don't actually go out and kill visionaries, and Wenji doesn't have a slab. So you don't kill a visionary until out of that 3-hour loop, I don't think, other than Wenji. And then
I
Juliana
killed Juliana when I was still in the...
You killed Juliana and Wenji, but
Yeah.
none of the
other
none
like
of the slab
yeah.
providing
Yeah.
visionaries.
Yeah. And so the first slab you get, I guess, is random because you got, I think, in my opinion, either the best or the second best slab.
Definitely the best. Yes, Blink is the best.
Yeah, I got a good one. I that's why I think
You
it's
got a
funny. I
good
didn't know it
one.
was random. I was like, oh, this is a good
Yeah.
one.
No, I got a
Blink
garbage
is
one.
also the it's like the stereotypical. I mean, you two might not know this, I guess. Much of the power system and the magic system and the moves that they have here are from Dishonored. These are the parts of the play style that make it a direct successor to Dishonored.
Got it.
And the way that they introduce slabs and the powers from slabs is interesting because like I went into it assuming that we were going to have Dishonored style powers and being very curious how in the story and the mechanics they were going to give us and or introduce us to these different powers. And Blink is also by far the most used and most powerful power in Dishonored as well. So
Got it. Yeah, I liked Blink, and
one.
then I liked the connection one, where
The
you can like
Nexus.
link the people.
Yeah. Okay, so you played with Nexus and with, I think Blink is actually called Shift, if I took my notes right.
You're probably right. Yeah.
And then everybody gets what is it? Reprise, because that's Cult Slab is Reprise.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is,
Reprise. Yeah.
Yeah, which is being able to die and realive yourself during the loop, so you don't like end the loop. My OPs that I played with were Shift and Aether. I don't know how I could play anyway without those. It's wild to me, Maddie, that you didn't play with invisibility, but you're not really a stealth person, actually, now that I take that back.
I am a stealth person. I like I think the reason I liked the connection one is because I'm a sniper person. So I could like connect the people and then headshot. And then boom, there goes the group.
Yeah.
So Aether also gets like orders of magnitude more powerful when you get the ghost upgrade that enables it to stop draining mana when you're standing still.
Aether is invisibility. I didn't mention that. Sorry.
Aether is cloak. And I guess we also haven't mentioned that what you can get multiple iterations of each slab, and each time they grant you a new upgrade, a new power on top of the base slab. And Aether goes from like not that useful, like 10-second stealth to an effectively infinite stealth for the right setups when you're standing still once you have Ghost.
Yeah.
And so if you happen to not, like, as a new player, you don't even know that there are upgrades at first, and you also don't know what the upgrades are. And so not getting Ghost for a while would probably make Aether feel relatively useless comparatively.
Well, the way that I had played it is I had managed to find some super fancy trinket, which we haven't talked about trinkets yet, but they're also little like power-ups that you can collect and, save with residuum, things that get added to your weapons, yourself, whatever. And I found some trinket that allowed me to gain back like the mana or whatever you called it every time I killed somebody. And then I also had you don't lose mana using Aether if you're not moving. So I literally had infinite Aether because I could just sit in a space invisible, and as long as I killed them with headshots in every single move, I was actually increasing the Aether that I had exactly equal or sometimes more than how I was losing it by firing the shot wearing Aether. And so I literally could just sit and spot and clear out a whole area, which might not be the most wild way to play, but I got pretty like good at just sitting there behind a thing and just killing everybody invisible and then moving on.
Yeah.
And then I had a really hard time playing not that way once I I didn't want to try the other ones. Like, I think Havoc was one, which I literally never used. It was the first one I got, which was garbage.
Is that the one where you, like, throw people in the air?
No, that one's...
Havoc is the Berserk. It's, like, higher damage, higher defense.
Oh, okay, yeah. I didn't use that one. I also didn't use the one where you throw the person up in the air.
Me neither. I think that one's Carnesis. Yes. Also did not use that one. And then the secret one that we found, which we won't tell you how, Maddie, so you can go figure out how you find it, but there's a secret slab called Fugue that makes people feel drunk.
So
Oh.
Fugue
Yeah.
is actually new in the
Yes.
latest expansion and did not exist when I played the game.
That's fun.
But it exists now,
Yeah.
so you can secretly find it, Maddie.
Okay.
I found all the hints to it, and Chris was like, "What is this? What are you talking about?" And then he went and found it.
There are two visionaries in theory that do not have slabs.
Yeah.
And in the most recent expansion for the game, they introduced a backstory about one of them actually having had a slab
Mm-hmm.
and getting rid of it for various reasons.
Yeah.
And so it was like whole new story and power patched in with that expansion
That's
into the
cool.
game, which was news to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like we have not yet talked about what I think is the important part of the game, which is the like different ways to do stuff.
Okay,
so we
talk
need
about it,
some
Chris.
kind of framing
Tell
for
us.
that, I guess.
Yeah.
Tell us. Talk about it.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me make up really quick a way to talk about this. Okay, so there are a bunch of different ways to do things. So let me run through this a little bit. Depending on what visionaries you're killing or what you're doing, there are infinite choices in the way that you accomplish that. There are different sources of like different ways of accomplishing that as well. In some cases, the visionaries will have around them different mini storylines.
Mm-hmm.
And by finding and following those mini storylines,
Mhm.
you can do something that will either kill the visionary or will put the visionary in a particular place for you to kill in a particular way. So they have these like written in, each of them has several different mechanisms around them that can lead you to killing them in some way.
Mhm.
In addition to that, you also have weapon variety. So for many of the visionaries, you can set up environments where you can snipe them from a rooftop, or you can set up environments where you can melee them to death with your machete, or you can set up environments where they walk through a trip mine and explode, right? There's also power variety. So you can set up different ways to throw them off cliffs, or to like poison them, or to like you were saying, nexus them with a whole room of people and then headshot somebody that's
Yeah.
actually easier to shoot and kill them in a chain. And so with all of this in place, you have variety coming from powers, coming from weapons, coming from positioning, and coming from explicit storylines that give you like dozens of ways to kill any one visionary at any one time. And I also think, and there's an interesting part of the like raw plot content here that I think a lot of people don't realize is you're looking for the right, if you think about like what they wrote, like the story they wrote to make this
Mhm.
game, the stuff that they custom designed to make the plot fun, it's easy to think of them only writing two storylines. Like the default storyline where you're not interacting with them, where would they have gone, what would they have done?
Mhm.
And it's easy to remember the final storyline where they are in the places that you forced them to be through your golden loop, through your visionary murdering spree, right? But what I think you don't remember is, until you play it again or think about it, is they actually write a bunch of custom dialogue, custom actions, custom
Mhm.
world setup for intermediate states. So you may find a visionary the first time in one place at one time and have a bunch of custom stuff that's been designed and written and plot and such for that experience and that engagement. And then maybe you figure out something in your pursuit of the golden loop that like encourages this person to be at a different place at this time.
Mhm.
And then you go there and there's a whole bunch of other custom stuff made and plot and dialogue and interactions for that experience, even though that one's not even the end either. Once you
Yeah.
figure out how to get past that, that whole thing's just gone, and then they end up in maybe their final place. So a bunch of the visionaries have 3 or 4 different like suites of custom written plot, interaction, dialogue, and like behavioral stuff that you encounter as you move through the game at different times.
Yeah, I think it gets kind of obvious in some of the places. I think the evening one with Alexis's party is probably one of the ones that stands out the most because you can see it in so many different formats. And at that point, you've had the whole day, right? And so in the evening, you could have like maybe Frank has already been killed. You killed him earlier that day, so there's no fireworks. Or he hasn't been killed and there's fireworks. And that has its own little interaction. Or Frank hasn't been killed, but you killed somebody else. So Frank is going to mourn on the radio the fact that these other people have died, which is like this whole thing. And then you also have the party itself. And maybe at that party, you just have Alexis and you figure out how to kill him by himself. But then you add one more visionary because you get him to go there. And then he's at a certain place doing the certain dealing. But if you add another visionary to that party, that person who originally was in like X room is now on Y room because he now moves and interacts differently because there's another visionary there that wasn't there before.
Another interesting one is Igor.
Yeah.
There's a time where you end up fighting Igor in the complex at night when he knows you're there and the whole place is full of trip mines and lasers and traps and stuff, and you end up dueling him in this like big battle to the end, right? But what you learn from that is how to change the storyline so he never ends up there. And so you do that intermediate whole setup with this massive dramatic battle of lasers and stuff. And then you never do it again because you learned how to put him somewhere else at a better time to kill him a different way. And so there's so much of this like intermediate state in the game that I think you don't realize is like fun complexity that it took to write a really engaging game.
Yeah. I'm curious if people had favorites and least favorite visionaries. Like, it doesn't have to be...
My least favorite is the one that you can kill in the least ways.
So Harriet?
Harriet, yes.
And she can only be killed in the sermon or something, right? Like in the morning.
Yeah, in the morning, and that's literally it. Otherwise, she goes
Harriet can... Yeah, there's pros and cons to this. I'm going to rant for a while again because I have so many thoughts about this, so please stop me if it gets boring or weird. So there's actually a plot reason.
No, just kidding.
There's actually a plot reason Harriet is so boring and Harriet has so few ways to kill her. And the reasoning there is that you probably haven't even noticed this.
It says specifically she really cares about the rules or something. Like it gave you a little dialogue thing that was like, Harriet cares a lot about protecting the cares a lot lot about the LPP or something. There's like a
so there's more to it that you probably honestly haven't noticed, Maddie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Bridget has either, to be honest. But I think we talked about it a little. The LPP is the loop protection protocol, which is the like kill the visionaries and the loop. So you protect the visionaries. And so there's a set of rules for the visionaries that they're supposed to be like staying safe at all times, basically. And Harriet really cares about this.
Nobody
but it's not just because she happens to care about it. What you don't realize unless you pay attention to her sermon, in air quotes, I say on video, not on the podcast, and listen to the people around her and read some of the stuff about her, is that she's actually a cult leader. She has built a religious cult around the loop and the time anomaly behind the loop. And
you
so
would
the
think
reason
that would make me like her more. I like cults so much.
Yes.
You would think that would make me like her more.
The reason she's so fervent about protecting the loop is because she's actually a cult leader of a cult that cares about the loop itself.
Yeah.
And so she's in her little building. It's locked down. It's not like there's only one way. There's several ways to kill her and several ways to break into the building. More than you found, Bridget, and more that I know exist and have even done. But they're really painful. Like there's one way in that's just sneak in from the other building, and that's what I think everyone does. But you can actually like get in a side door a certain way. You can wait until the poison fills the room and then sneak in from the basement through the poison with Iron Lungs trinket. Like there's a couple different ways to get in there, but there's like notably less ways of killing her than there is everybody else because she is this fervent cult leader about protecting the loop, basically.
Do you agree with that, Maddie? Is Harry your least favorite, or do you have a different least favorite?
I thought Alexis was a douche, but it wasn't like he wasn't fun. He was just like a douche.
That's kind of the point.
Yeah. So I like when you said that, I was like, oh, I guess him because he's like a douchebag. But
They kind of all are, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
I'm
kind
a
of all are.
Wenji fan. I don't know. Maybe it's because she was my first one, but I kind of liked Wenji.
Wenji's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I thought Wenji was fun because she's the super smart scientist that makes all this happen. But, and I'll tell you about this later and just hint at it now, there's reason to believe she's not as smart as it seems.
I don't believe that. She created Residuum. She's excellent.
Bridget, who are
we can talk about this when we get to string theory later.
Harriet was also my least favorite, but I was annoyed by it because I was sold this, like, this is too much into, like, my final, like, thoughts of, like, likes and dislikes, but we get so little characterization from each of the people that I was disappointed that there weren't more ways to be creative and kill her. Like, I wanted more ways to kill all of them, but some of them had more than others, and hers had so little I was just annoyed by it. The favorite one that I had, I think, was actually Frank. I thought that sneaking into his radio, like, studio was something I was really proud of, the way that I figured out how to do it, which I'm sure is just one of the many ways. But I was proud of figuring out how to do it without having to take the weird thing that removes all of your slab powers. So that was a fun way to get in there. And then I love the way that you kill him at the end. Have you killed Frank yet? Maddie, not through the radio tower. Okay, I won't spoil it for you, but it's really fun, and it's one of my, like, favorites.
Okay.
It's just like, it's really delightful the way that you murder him. I know that's a terrible sentence, but it's very delightful. And so I would say Frank, if only for that. And also it's just kind of fun when you go kill him in his radio studio, the way that they have, like, the booth set up, and of course he's got this super fancy booth, this super fancy bedroom sitting over this booth, and I don't know, I think Frank's probably my favorite just for the fun of the thing. Personality wise, I think they're all probably mildly hot garbage.
They're all bad. Yeah. I think Igor's storyline is probably my favorite, but it's subtle.
Yeah, we don't get much of Igor other than him just trying to be a scientist and trying to...
Yeah,
well, the storyline I mentioned that you erase is actually really tragic.
Well, I just got to a part where I learned that he, like, built a thing and then accidentally made it invisible, and then he had to get Wenji's help to find his shit again.
That was fun.
So, I mean, this is spoilers, but I guess you do spoilers on this podcast, so that's okay. Yeah. Igor's storyline is really kind of subtle, so you might miss it, but he's actually the scientist that initiated this program, even though Wenji is the one that does all of the stuff that makes it happen. And so Wenji gets all the credit, even though Igor is, in theory, also a very smart scientist. And nobody thinks he's good at anything because everyone thinks Wenji is the brilliant scientist and Igor's just the nobody. And what you end up finding out through Igor's storyline as you progress is that Igor, in front of you, you see it happen, actually invents time travel. He invents seeing the future.
Yeah.
And then your way of changing his storyline is to secretly ruin his experience, and so that he doesn't know that he invented time travel, and then you murder him.
That's
so
sad.
It's very, very tragic. It's so sad in the grand scheme of the world for poor Igor. Yes.
Okay, I want us, if we feel good about it, I want to hear some hypotheses from Maddie based on where she is right now, where she's at, and then Chris and I can laugh as or revel in the amazingness that is Maddie's prediction.
So what theories do you want? Like why?
Okay, let's think of some good ones. I want you to theorize, like, why Juliana and Colt are, like, against each other. And then also, actually, are there other interesting lenses? Chris, just give one. Don't give a list. Give, like, one.
Why does Colt not remember, even though it sounds like
Okay.
he did previously.
Those are two good ones. Okay, those are your two.
Okay. So for the first one of like my theory behind why Juliana and Colt are like kind of opposing is like the things that I've learned are that like only Juliana and Colt remember. I mean, historically, even though you start with amnesia. And my guess, and again, this is I'm not.
I just realized how much of the story Maddie hasn't gotten to yet.
I
There's a
know.
very fun spoiler here.
I know.
So my guess is that Juliana and Colt had a relationship at some point. And
Technically true.
Shut up, Chris.
like
Let
a
her speak.
romantic relationship. And again, this is just my theory, and I'm not trying to make everything about romance or whatever, but I also did watch Pride and Prejudice like this weekend and have been on like a little bit of like a romance kick. And I feel like they maybe went into the loop together because there's maybe like, okay, and I'm making this shit up. I think something like outside has happened that makes living outside dire and or not really possible. And so I wonder if there was something that caused them to go into the loop so that they could still stay together. And then my guess is like after time, because they're keeping all their memories, they've lived and lived and lived, and Colt is like, well, I'm done with this, but Juliana still wants them to like live together so that they can like keep being together, because once Colt ends the loop, something's gonna happen and one of them's gonna die. This is my theory.
That's a cute
And
little
so that's also like
interpretation.
why Juliana wants to keep it going. And then I think like throughout of that, she's probably pissed that Colt wants to end it, because she's like, why don't you want to stay with me and like be together forever?
I feel like we have to spoil Maddie.
Well, okay,
here.
no,
I
let's
don't know how
pause.
to not do this. There's so many parts of this that we can't talk about it
But
if we
the
don't.
question is, do we spoil Maddie or do we not spoil Maddie? Because in my opinion, most of the things that we learn, you have to piece together. This is also my gripe. You have to piece together through barks, through reading stuff, and it's
You
never
keep saying
actually
bark.
explained.
What's a bark?
A bark is like a line that gets said by a character not as a part of formal dialogue.
Oh.
So, like,
yes.
Juliana's
it's all formal
barks.
dialogue.
Yes. Yeah.
That's one thing you realize eventually is
Yes.
it's all formal dialogue.
Wait, what was the other thing you wanted me to theorize on?
Chris wanted why are they
Why does Colt not remember?
Yes, why
even
does
though
Colt
he
not
did
remember?
previously.
Okay, so I wonder if okay, here's a different theory now that I'm thinking about it, because I haven't really thought about that, is what if they were remembering and they were dating and they like had a big fight, and it's almost like Eternal Sunshine, Spotless Mind, and Colt was like, I want to forget you, and like I don't want to remember this relationship, and now Juliana's pissed about it, but he succeeded in not being able to remember her.
Okay.
I think we can talk about
I think we can
most
tell her
of
that
the
she's
loop theory
wrong.
without
But
spoiler.
I love that idea. I love the idea of an Eternal Sunshine video game.
Okay, so there's
That
my
sounds
like
amazing.
very romance brain right now, and I'm guessing
I
what
love
y'all
it.
are gonna spoil is that
I
it
love
literally
it.
has nothing to do with romance.
I think we don't need to spoil to talk about everything
I
else, but I
know,
think
but
it's fun to spoil.
I'm
spoil
imagining
it,
Maddie's
spoil it. I don't
reaction right
care.
now. Juliana is Colt's daughter.
Oh no! Oh dear!
Which Colt clearly does not remember for a while.
Yes. I think
Wow,
I guessed
oh
it
no.
about 10 minutes before we actually get a bark that tells us.
Oh no! Oh my gosh!
Yes, she is his daughter, in fact.
Wow. Okay. That
If
is
it-
gonna
if
be
it-
funny for everybody.
Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, Maddie, I 100% assumed dating. Like, there was no... And they imply that. They make that the joke. Like, there's no way.
Well, with hindsight, Colt implies that, and Juliana implies that he won't like the actual answer.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Every single
That's
time,
fair.
Colt says something like, "Oh, we dated," like that quote you said.
Yeah.
And Juliana's response is always something like, "It's worse than you know," or like that would be bad, wouldn't it? Or like, I don't know, not remembering well, but Juliana always implies that he's not going to like the real answer.
Yes. And that to me is literally the only actual surprise we get in the game. That's it. I feel like everything else is us interpreting what we think the actual real answer is.
But that's
which is all just hypothesizing.
No, I feel like it's not that hypothesis now that I've thought through it all. Like, I feel like I have a concrete theory. I really want to hear the theory.
Okay, before he gets into the theory, Maddie, the context that I want to give you when you get to the end, and we won't talk about the ends, we'll say that there are multiple endings, and based on the choice you make, you get slightly different ones, but none of the endings actually have answers within them. None of them.
Interesting.
And so the actual thing, like once you get there, if you're expecting this big climactic thing with all of the this is how this shit works, no, you get absolutely nothing in my opinion. That's bad and I hated it. I think Chris really liked it, but I just want to give that context before you go into the theorizing, because this, like when we say theorizing, it is legit theorizing based on puzzling.
Literally theorizing.
Yes, because we got no answers at the end. The only like piece of information you get explicitly is the daughter thing. And that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, give us your interpretation for Deathloop.
Okay. Where do I start? Okay, I'm just gonna start saying there's so much. Don't oh my god me. There's so many pieces. Okay, I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna say my theory, and then I'm gonna talk about why I'm convinced that's the theory. Okay, so the first thing we got to talk about is what are we even theorizing about? Because there's not a clear question even to have an answer to, and so what we're theorizing is. Generally, how does this time loop work? Why are people in it? Why is it the same day every day, even though they thought they, like, one of the big tragedies of Deathloop is that all these poor little crazy people in the Aeon program thought they were going to live infinite lives. Like,
but they're only living the same lives, day over.
But they're only living the same day. Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of the big tragedy of the loop is that all these people are living one day, the first day. There's a couple characters, NPCs, that every time you walk past them every day start with, I woke up with my back hurting. Hopefully that ends soon. And it's like, well, that's really unfortunate for you because you're going to have like years of waking up with your back hurting without realizing it.
I found Wenji's note about how it should last 16,000 years around, but she didn't plan for it lasting longer than 50. But I actually don't know how long it's been lasting. But I do have the note where Wenji said, I don't plan on it lasting longer than 50, which is interesting. Do we learn more about that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So there's a couple things you learn, and I'll talk about some of the science that you learn, I guess, in vague tones. One thing you learn is that over time, are you okay with me spoiling things, Maddie? I'm just going to say random stuff. Yeah. Okay. So first off, Aeon did not invent the anomaly.
Yeah. I was already there.
The anomaly, yes, the anomaly is a factor of the universe that is here.
Yeah.
And not only did Aeon not invent it, Aeon is not the first group to study it or to enter a time loop with it.
Oh.
There were 2 time loops the whole time.
Yes, there were multiple time loops that have taken place here. And you eventually learn, spoilers, huge spoiler territory, that the reason Colt is here as a non-scientist, non-effective dude that has guns is because Colt was actually a member of the military that previously occupied Updam and the area around the anomaly. And Colt was the pilot that originally flew a plane into the anomaly and entered the first time loop. Colt was the original and sole participant of the original time loop.
Wow.
And this all is factual. We find pieces
Yes,
that...
you know this.
Yes, this is all factual.
Well, so I know that Colt used to be in the military, but I hadn't found that other piece. Like,
Yeah.
I found a
Yes,
thing.
it was a past military.
Yeah,
Yes.
I did find a thing because he had recorded a commercial about the time, like, coming into the
Yes.
time loop. And they were,
Yeah.
like, giving him notes. And they were like, well, we want you to do the commercial because you're, like, past military guy or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they refer to Colt as the captain a lot. Colt was actually just a pilot. He was the test pilot. And they promote him to captain in the lead up to his mission flying into the anomaly as like an honorary kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because they're like, he's
And
about to
so-
go die.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so they are convinced that he's going to die. And not only are they convinced he's going to die, they are afterwards convinced that he does die.
Yeah.
But they don't know in reality that flying into the anomaly locked him into a time loop,
Mm-hmm.
which he then spent 17 years in.
Mm-hmm. 17 years where conveniently the girl he was dating, married
Yes.
to, before then he had in fact gotten pregnant, which he didn't know
Correct.
because he was in
So
a time loop.
he got his wife pregnant with, we learn later, Juliana,
Yeah.
and then flew into a time loop alone. And he lived 17 years alone in a time loop in Updom.
Yeah. Which is wild.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
crazy.
Wild.
And so then we get back to the future where Aeon shows up. And what we learn kind of is that...
Wait, can I pause you
um,
before you keep going?
Yes, please do.
The way that he gets out of the time loop is by attempting suicide,
Yes, he kills himself.
Oh.
which is how you know
I
to
am
kill.
shocked it took 17 years.
Yeah, he
Right?
lasts 17 years
Right?
before killing himself.
I feel like
yes.
I would have lasted less than a year in that kind of situation. You're by yourself in this
Yes.
weird, like,
I feel like
it would be
I
horrifying.
don't know how. I feel like it would definitely be less than 17 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it took him that long. He is a sturdy boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Mentally
boy.
sturdy. Sorry, you
Okay,
keep
so-
going, Chris.
No, that was good. That's what I was going to get into next, actually, is how that leads places. And so here, the reason I'm telling you all of this is because it is relevant to understand what is native to the loop and what isn't, and where Wenji comes into this.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we're kind of led through the game to think that people in this mystical time loop just have magic powers, and this is just a thing,
Mhm.
right? That's not the case. That is all Wenji. The visionaries are also not a piece of the loop. The visionaries are Wenji. And so what happens is when it seems, we're now in theory territory, it seems when everybody in the loop dies, the loop ends. Presumably, we can guess, based on the fact that when Colt finally killed himself, the loop ended, and he came out of it. And so what we learn, and this is no longer theory, this is fact
so
now,
now
is
we're just like multiversing. No, sorry, continue.
we haven't even gotten there
Sorry.
yet, but also yes.
Maybe.
Well, you are, and so we'll get there. But what we learn is that as a part of studying the anomaly, Wenji invents various ways, 3 ways in particular, 4 ways, to control the magic / science of the anomaly. And she does 4 things with it. One thing she does with it is the visionaries. So I think it's fair, again in theory territory. You want to say something, Bridget?
If you're about to say the visionaries aren't real people, I reject that fully based on factual information.
No, it's not
I-
that. No. The visionaries are real, but they were not originally important. There was no
yes.
concept of
Okay,
visionaries.
yes.
And so what Wenji does before starting the time loop is theorize this way to, instead of presumably tying the time loop to everyone in the loop, to focus the time loop's anchors onto the visionaries.
Yes.
And so Wenji actually creates the concept of a visionary by scientifically anchoring the loop to these 9 people
Mhm.
instead of presumably to everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So she does 3 other things. One thing she does is she creates slabs.
Mhm.
Wenji actually created the magic powers by scientifically harnessing residuum from the anomaly and baking it into these slabs, which are scientific / magical creations that Wenji has produced.
Mhm. And
So
it, for some
when a
reason, didn't make one for herself, which is wild because I would
She
have
did
made
not,
one for
yes.
myself first, right? Like, that's,
Yes.
yeah.
I think it's kind of implied that these slabs are like philosophical powers that are representations of the visionaries.
Personality.
And that is not at all the case. Wenji just made them and chose who to give them to.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
That's a theory,
Same
though,
with trinkets.
right? Like, we know that Wenji made them, but we don't actually know why they picked the powers for each particular person.
Well, so I think you're right, but there are two hints. One is that when other people acquire the slabs, they get the same powers of those slabs. And the second hint, I think, is actually related to the hidden power that comes out in the later expansion.
Fugue.
The implication being that spoiler person, I'm not going to say, wasn't excited about the power of the slab they were given and got rid of it as a result.
Mm-hmm.
And so hints at a theory. Okay, so the other things Wenji did were, I guess there's two others. One is trinkets.
Mm-hmm.
Wenji actually also invented trinkets. And the reason these things give you powers is because they are also scientifically physicalized manifestations of anomaly power that Wenji has scientifically created. And you actually find in a little side quest area in Carl's Bay that there is a random looper that is also a smart enough scientist to have stolen some of Wenji's research and built their own trinket producer, which does stuff with multiverse stuff that we can get into in a moment.
Yeah.
And then the last thing Wenji does is learn how to apply residuum to things, items, not people, but items, in order to make them more permanent across loop iterations.
Yeah. Which is
And
all,
so,
but like we have all of this information, but I don't think that like the actual hypothesis for why we're in the loop or why we break out of the loop. I think the only really thing that Wenji does is just make sure that the 8 visionaries carry the power of the loop, right? Like that's really it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But she does a couple other things. And I guess when you get right down to it, the actual theory that there is to develop, the only thing there really is to theorize on with enough information to have an opinion is why nobody remembers.
Yeah.
That's the big moment. And I have a very deep theory about it, but I'm curious if you both have thoughts on that before I go into it.
I want to hear Maddie's first, then I'll give mine. If you have a theory, Maddie.
I don't, because the one thing that I picked up was, I think at some point I thought it was Wenji, but maybe it was somebody else. Like it's known that Juliana and Colt are the only ones that keep their. Like at some point I learned, I feel like Wenji knew wasn't keeping her memories.
Mm-hmm. I think we did learn that. Yeah.
So like that's when she's like, I don't know why. Like the note that I had found was like her like saying, I don't know why they are the only ones that do.
Yeah.
Wenji's the only one that realizes.
Yeah.
And in fact, Wenji herself does not keep her memory. Wenji every day wakes up not realizing, thinking it's the first day.
Yeah.
And then what she does is she writes detailed notes every day
with residuum
and uses residuum to store the notes over the loop. So every day Wenji wakes up
and like has to
thinks it's the first day, finds her notes and learns everything about what's happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good
and so
for her.
she's keeping knowledge via residuum.
Yeah.
So my hypothesis is based on a couple of things. So like one, we have 2-Bit, and 2 we have Juliana, and 2-Bit talks about how there's 3 things. There's also like this rando person we'll talk about. So like 2-Bit is that little computer that Charlie puts in like part of his brain in or whatever the fuck. And that little dude says that he does have memories. It persists over the loop, but he dumps 80% of his memory every day. And so that to me implies that if this computer thing has to dump 80% of his memory, he's sharing like a human brain to be this like artificial intelligence thing. I feel like it has something to do with when you relive that time over and over again. It's like a combination of boredom and too much for your brain to keep in a space. And so we also get like little hints from who is it? There was like this rando person you can find in Carl's Bay who also remembers. There's actually
she remembers
a
every day.
third person, and she commits suicide at the end of every like single day. It's actually very devastating. Hoping that somebody else has a memory. She thinks that it's going to be you, Colt, and hoping that you will come and save her from committing suicide. So like she leaves these things for you to find, for you to like stop her from committing. And the like vibes that I get from her based on how she talks to you, and this, I don't think, like, maybe this character doesn't have the right facts either, but I have a hard time they would put this in the game if it wasn't slightly relevant. But she talks about how things were starting to get so boring and every single day was identical and exactly the same, and it was hard to keep remembering, and she felt like she was going crazy because everyone around her was living exactly the same, and for some reason she wasn't. And so we have a little bit of that, and then we have a little bit from Juliana where in Barks she talks about compressing memories. And so I really, like, at least I vaguely remember that. And so I feel like a combination of those three things, to me, says you, one, just don't have enough space in your brain to keep all of this shit. And so I think the recurring amnesia is maybe the brain being like, fuck, like, let me dump some of this stuff out, like in Colt's case, before he remembers again. And then, like, the people who haven't been remembering at all, like, Colt was in a loop before, so he's experienced it before and maybe was more aware to keep that awareness. But for everybody else living the exact same day, it kind of becomes this boring monotony thing. And you eventually just end up forgetting that it's the same day because there's so much in your head and you're so bored.
Where they all did remember, and then
yes, that's my hypothesis, is that for a while they knew. Everyone's like eventually
it went on too long.
Yes, and then the only reason that Colt kept remembering is because he was experienced with it. And then the hypothesis the internet has, but I don't know how I feel about it, is that in order to keep things spicy and exciting so you continue remembering, he started killing Juliana so that she would keep remembering. And the way that he did that was by spicing up her life a little bit, I guess, and murdering her a shit ton. And then vice versa, Colt starts forgetting, so Juliana starts killing him so that he has more variety to his day and can continue to remember. I don't know. This is all, like, I don't know. Based on those few things is my hypothesis. I don't know if that's mapped to yours, Chris, but that's what I think is happening.
That is basically my hypothesis too, which is at the beginning, everyone did actually remember.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't handle it. But here's where I think mine differs very slightly. I think some people are just better at it. Some of these people are just built different for whatever reason. And in particular, yes, in particular, there's 2.5 people that are just different here.
And a computer.
The half is Colt. Colt's actually not that good at this.
Why did balloons just pop up on Chris's face?
I don't know why. I don't know why there's balloons on our video. Is that something I did with my hands? Am I like making balloons out of my like?
Is that
like a FaceTime
is
thing?
that triggered somehow?
Well, because you can do a thumbs up, right? And it'll do like the
there you go. I finally got
the little thing. You can do like the little heart.
You did the
That's
thumbs up
cute.
earlier.
I didn't know that was a thing. Is it happening for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, Chris.
Okay.
People are just
I don't know why I have
different.
balloons, but anyway, yeah, some people are just different, and in fact, the two people I think are superpowered, just better for some reason, are Juliana and the random person you run into.
Yeah.
Because they never have any problem remembering.
Yeah.
They remember forever. They remember infinitely. And there's some hint from what Juliana says at various times that something basically to the effect of what Bridget said. Some combination of just being better and also being able to mentally handle the boredom and the repetition without breaking is what leads some people to remember. And so this person you run into, even though she's like having the worst time of her life, she thinks she's going crazy. What's happening is she's not. Everyone else has gone crazy, and she thinks she's so weird because she is the only one that actually manages to remember. And so what I believe is a one-sided version of what Bridget said the internet thinks, and what she thinks is that that Juliana doesn't need help. Juliana's just better than everybody else. Colt does. Colt is not able to self-sustain a state of remembering and requires Juliana making things interesting in order to remember, at which point he remembers for a while and then devolves back into obscurity before she corrects him again,
what
basically.
could maybe support Colt not naturally being good at this would be the fact that he survived 17 years in that original loop.
Yeah.
Because we were all talking about like he remembered it the whole time.
Well,
right?
So
but it's possible maybe he
does...
was just living a day at a time and then eventually killed himself.
Why does Juliana not want the loop to get broken?
That I don't know. My guess there, if it honestly,
they don't answer that.
No,
they don't.
My guess.
Well,
is that...
Juliana gives her answer.
What's her answer?
Her answer is that it's just awesome.
Yeah.
She has infinite time to learn, to get better at stuff,
right?
to enjoy life, to be in charge of everything. Juliana just really
thrives.
Enjoys it. She just thrives in the loop. And so she does not want it to end. And I mean, I don't know how we can talk about this without kind of spoiling the end or lack thereof.
I mean, we don't have to talk about the actual endings, but you have to imagine your whole goal here is either to break the loop or to continue on, right? And so like the eventual reality is like you get told the whole time by Juliana that you've done this before. Every single thing that you've done here, you've done before. Like she constantly tells you that.
You have done the entire golden loop before, presumably.
Yes. Theoretically, she says that. I always thought she was lying. I believe now that she was telling the truth. Because it seems to me that there is some infinite parallel universe reality things where you as Colt get convinced at the very end to let the loop keep running, which is actually the ending that I picked. And my guess is that there are infinite versions of a reality in which Colt chooses not to break the loop. And so when she's like, yeah, we've done this all before, it's because they've done it a bajillion and a half times. Every single time it ends that way until it won't, right? Until the one Colt who decides to actually break the loop. But in my head, that doesn't seem like a happy ending to me. Like breaking the loop, I guess, is good because all of the people that were stuck in those like day loops can finally remember again. But to what? To what garbage universe are you unleashing people in to live? Because the whole point, at least I don't know if this is factual or another hypothesis, is that this world is completely going to end. Like they were doing this as a last ditch effort to like live.
I don't think that's the case. I don't know.
I
didn't get that.
I feel like if I get to the end, I'm gonna choose to end it.
Choose to end it and then let us know how it goes. I did theoretically read about it. I'm sure Chris is
choosing to end it.
It didn't exist the same way when I played.
It's a different ending.
I have since learned how it ends, but I have not actually done that.
But how myself. It ends, I really feel like the world is garbage, is absolute hot garbage when they leave. I don't know if that's real or not, but I feel like it is. And so to me, it feels like a better ending if Juliana and Colt keep the loop for now to figure out how to make other people remember. Because Juliana has figured out a way to help Colt remember. She's figured out a way to compress memories theoretically. So like help figure out these other people how to remember so that they can actually like live. I don't know.
So that's where we get into some of the other fun stuff that's kind of side we haven't even talked about yet. The next is we haven't even talked about the fact that there's multiple Wenjis yet. Or that in the story, you are continually running into multiple Julianas and multiple Colts.
Yeah, I still don't understand what that is. That's wild.
So there is actually, those are not from other loops. They are multiple dimensional copies. And so what Wenji figures out, and that one random Aeon looper NPC that's apparently super genius figures out, is that Residuum, not only can it loop time, it can also be used to breach dimensions. And so Wenji has 15 of her, but at any given point in time, only one of those is the real Wenji from that timeline. And the other Wenjis are from other dimensions. And so what Wenji does every morning is wakes up, reads all of her notes, not only learns everything about Residuum and the loop and what's happening, but also contacts and then decides to team up with a squad of Wenjis from some nearby parallel universes, brings them all together, and then they every day form a little cabal of scientists that try to make stuff better for 24 hours until they all forget and die and loop again. That's the last major piece of this that there is to be interested in, is the dimension hopping. And we know Wenji's doing this on purpose every day. We know that one Aeon Looper figures out how to do this because he dimension hops people in and then murders them to steal their essence of Residuum and use it. And we also know that Igor uses this dimension hopping power in order to speak to the future, in order to time travel. And so there's a whole slew of stuff there that we learn exists, but don't learn about in this game, that I think would be where Deathloop 2 would go.
I don't even
And
think
you also find that the Julianas and the Colts around, it's like Colt talks to his other self a lot as if he's a different loop iteration, but we learn enough to know that that's not the case, and Colt doesn't understand. Those are Colts from other dimensions. Maybe also different progresses in their loop, but they're other dimensional Colts. Same with the Julianas that are showing.
I don't know if they would actually answer any of those questions, though, because the thing that I read as a part of how it's made was that they, actually on purpose made sure that they didn't dig into all of these answers. They wanted to keep it open for players to theorize. So I don't know that they'll ever answer it. Like, they might give us more hints, but I don't think we'll ever outright have a full answer to these things.
Well, I think you and I learned when we were looking stuff up after that Deathloop theoretically takes place in the far future of Dishonored.
Yes,
in
we
the
did
same
actually
universe.
figure that out, Maddie. Isn't that interesting?
Which is very interesting, first off. But I hope that there's like a sci-fi Dishonored in another series in the future that's like the far future of Deathloop of Dishonored. And I think that would be awesome, where they read into the anomaly again or something else in the universe and do cool stuff.
Okay, likes and dislikes. Do people want to run through really briefly their highlights and their lowlights before we hop on to recommendations?
I can do mine so far since I haven't finished it.
Yes.
So far, I actually really like the setup. And I think for me, and this is going to sound bad, I kind of wanted the puzzly piece without the combat piece. Like, I actually liked the puzzling and the, like, finding the notes and, like, figuring out where everybody was. I really liked that part of the game, and I kind of wanted that without, like, it made me realize that I would really like this game without the combat. And it's not that the combat was bad, it's just that, like, when I think about what I was having fun with, none of it was about the mechanics or, like, the gameplay itself. It was much more about, like, uncovering the story. And then I really liked, the art style of, like, I liked the murder mystery aspects of it, kind of, quote unquote murder mystery. It's not really murder mystery.
I kept calling it a murder mystery, and Bridget says it's not at all.
No, it's not.
I think that's an interesting discussion on its own.
It's not a murder mystery, but it has the vibes. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, it has the vibes.
Yeah.
There's a murder board. You called it a murder board.
Yeah.
I did call it a murder
So
board.
I will say that, like, that's the part that I liked. And I just, like, I kind of want a game that's that. Like, I just want that.
Yeah. So, like, I think that the thing you're describing points towards the tedium, because I also, when I finished the whole game, had a desire to go back through and solve some of the side, like quests and find more of the mystery and find more of the pieces. But it felt a lot more tedious to me to have to do that while also needing to sneak around and hide and shoot the same people in the same places over and over again. And I wish that we had, so Juliana Slab is Masquerade, so she can look like somebody else. And I wish there was a way, maybe in a future DLC for people who've been playing a long time, to get Masquerade as Colt, so that you could just play the game without combat, because you could just pretend to be any other lame-o NPC.
Oh, that's super interesting, yeah.
And I think that would be really delightful and take away a lot of the tedium of continuing to explore, because for me, I also was feeling similarly. Were there other likes and dislikes you had, Baddy?
No, I already talked about them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I'm just going to +1 to all the aesthetic stuff. I agree with that. I really loved all of the liveliness of the maps. Like, it felt like there were people everywhere doing things all the time. And that was really fun. And it was fun to see, like, the little changes. I thought that was really delightful. I thought the comedy back and forth and the writing was really delightful and fun, too. And they did it in a really silly way. And I think they had a lot of delightful interactions through the game. So, like, when you log on to Colt's computer and it's like, haha, we actually had a bug there tracking you the whole time. And you're like, motherfucker. I remember that happening to me. And then I did it a second time because it was in between my break. And I don't know. It was just, some of that stuff was really fun.
Yeah.
The thing that I didn't like as much, one was that repetitiveness that I think I would have liked to see something without combat. I like that take, Maddie. I think that's a nice take. The Visionaries, to me, I wanted more interaction. I wanted more depth with them. I don't feel like there was really much because you always had to be sneaking. So you only got like little side combos or the pieces of paper you picked up. I don't know if there's a way that you could do that better or not, but I really wanted the Visionaries to be less flat. They felt kind of flat to me. Not all of them. I think some of them were a lot more fleshed out than others. So I should just say like some. The actual like murder mystery-ish thing is I guess what we'll talk, the puzzle, that to me was the biggest letdown of the game. And I'm curious, Chris, like how this felt to you, since I know you really loved the way that this like all panned out. But for me, the second half of the game, where I thought that this game would shine, was we've now learned all of this stuff about all of these different visionaries, their paths, their behaviors, where they're at, when they're at, blah, blah, blah. And I expected the end to be similar to the entirety of the rest of the gameplay, which was, here's the 5 million ways now that you can, not million, but you know what I mean. Like, here are all of the different ways now that you can go uniquely kill all of these visionaries in one day. And that to me was something I was really excited to do. Like, I thought it would be this complex system of now I have all this stuff and I get to puzzle out like who to kill when and where and how and when I need to weave all these together and choose my own path to figuring out how I want to do that. There's only one answer though. There is literally one way to kill all of the visionaries in one day. You just have to execute it. And once you have done all of the pre-steps, it literally gives you the path to how to execute it on that murder board. It says, do this, then do this, then do this. It tells you how. And so I have a bone to pick with the idea of this being an actual puzzle, because the like how to do it is definitely something that's really flexible and was very fun to discover. But the ending, I don't think feels like a home run to me unless I could have had even like give me 4 or 5 different ways that I could have done. And I know that this is like an impossibly like large scale that I'm saying here, like the fact that they would have to bake all this in, like I'm going to acknowledge that. But when they set up this game to be a game that you can play however you want, and here are the really cool different ways you can all kill these people, you can really only kill them in that one situation, in that order. And you can do that killing in that situation in that order in a creative way. But like, I can't choose to kill Charlie first and then do so-and-so next and then go and figure out how to get them to a different place. Like, that just doesn't work. There's one path and they tell you what that path is. So that to me was my biggest dislike, was that it didn't feel like a puzzle at the end, actually. It was just like an execution thing. And I would have loved, I think if that had been different, I would have been thrilled with this game, and I would have replayed it. Like, I would have went back to do all of the fun secrety stuff, because I would have tried to figure out how to kill them all in different loops in different ways. But I don't really feel like passion.
So you're
to
saying
go
that
do
like executing the golden loop had like one
yes,
way.
there's one way to execute the golden loop. And
So-
I wish that there was more. And I did validate this. I went to many Reddit posts, and everyone says there's one way.
I think it's about thinking about a different level. You can say there's one way.
There's one like
but all
timeline.
that's locked,
yes.
all that's
there's one
locked is
timeline.
killing a person in a place at a time. But we already kind of talked about the fact that there are infinite ways to kill them. And so the variety is supposed to come from there.
I know that you say that, but like if you give somebody a really easy way to do it, and it's going to be a hard day to survive through and kill all these people while also having Juliana like being attacking you constantly because you're with the visionaries every single freaking time, then it's a high ask to say be creative on that last loop. Because I don't want to. I want to make sure I execute it well. So I'm going to pick sniping. I'm going to pick the way that I know is going to work during that loop. To me, that feels broken.
I get that, and you're right, but I didn't do it like that. And I think that's why I enjoyed all of it, because to me, I experimented a lot more with ways of killing all of them, with the different paths, with the different powers, with the different weapons. And so maybe on the very last loop, I did all my best things or whatever. But I know because I watched you that I spent a lot more time experimenting with different ways to get through the levels and different ways to kill each of them. And so I never hit tedium, partially because I like the combat and I think that's part of the point of the game. And if you don't, that's a problem. But also because I kept experimenting more with powers, weapons, paths, and ways to kill them. And so I stopped learning about the world and the lore, but I started exploring the variety of mechanisms of killing them so that when I finally got to my final loop, I had all my like favorite ways that I'd explored out in how to kill them all in the best ways. I
feel like for me, I think because I didn't grow up playing games, there comes a point in combat, and I felt this way with Warframe maybe a little bit too, where I get very overwhelmed by choices. There's like a part of my brain that's overwhelmed and not having fun with it.
think I'd advise for you not to pick combat then. Like part of the variety here is that there are a bunch of paths that involve tricking the visionaries into places where it's easy to kill them, often not even with your own gun. And you might be somebody that has more fun finding those paths.
Right. Totally. And I think I wonder if that's like why you had fun with it, and maybe why like Bridget didn't have fun with it, because Bridget, it seems like what you're saying is like, well, I have my way that I know is going to be successful, and like experimenting and losing over and over again in other ways isn't fun, right?
Yeah. Well, I have that problem, and we've talked about it before, where if like for me, I have an intrinsic value and reward in like different ways, and repeating stuff that I've done before isn't valuable to me unless there's something interesting about it. And if Chris, like for instance, I'll take the Alexis party because we did find multiple ways to kill him. I had one way, I knew how to kill him, and then I ended up getting fucked over for whatever reason. I had to go a different path. And when I went a different path, I found a much easier way to kill him. I was like, oh my God, who knew this existed? And that was like delightful. But it was, for me, so easy to die and so tedious to go through his mansion for the party and have to sneak and hide that I was feeling like pressure to wanting to be successful in that run. And so until I got forced into a corner to try something different, it wasn't delightful to me to have the anxiety of maybe doing all this work and failing. I wanted to succeed, and I knew a way that was going to succeed.
I think you're right. But after my experimentation, for instance, I figured out ways to hop from roof to roof and get to his castle and do that in a way that wasn't stressful.
Yeah.
And if you do take the time to do it, that's the kind of thing that you're rewarded with.
Yeah.
But
and
with
I guess
like repetition.
And I guess for me, I just feel more anxiety about it. So that to me isn't as fun. And it might have been also like pressure I placed on myself that like I hated dying and losing the stuff I had done on those loops because it felt like a waste of time. And I know that that is probably not the correct mindset here, is to feel like that's a waste of time. Like, I should probably feel like, oh, I tried a thing and it didn't work, or I tried a thing and that wasn't the way, or I tried a thing and that was really fun, but also, like, it didn't work out the way that I expected. And that's probably the mindset that would have been healthier for me, like, to enjoy that part of the game. But instead, I had this mindset of, if I die in the middle of this loop, then it was all a waste of time, which I don't think is how you played, Chris. I think you were willing to die pretty frequently. Yeah, and I didn't have that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's probably just a difference in the way that we play. Like, I felt the stress when I died, and you were like, okay, I'll try something different.
Yeah, that's it. I feel like it's like they're both valid opinions. It's just like whether you think something is fun or not.
Yeah.
It's like a very subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that hearing you talk about Dishonored, I think I would still, like, I enjoyed the core of this gameplay. But I don't know. So Chris,
Dishonored is basically Deathloop without open world mystery. Imagine Deathloop with a linear story, and you'll have an idea of what Dishonored is.
Well, maybe we'll
have you played
to try
Hitman, Chris?
Yeah, lots of Hitman.
Is it like similar to Hitman?
It's more constrained Hitman, yes.
Okay.
And I did love
So imagine
Hitman.
like there's
Hitman.
one building with one person, and your goal is to kill that person, and there's maybe 4 ways to kill that person in that building. It's like it's a more constrained
on rails
version of the same thing that just is more atmospheric in a dark, spooky way.
I don't know.
That
I need like
fun
at least
to
2 more hours of thought to think about why I like Hitman and why I didn't like this as much or felt that pressure. I don't know the answer to that question, but it's an interesting one. I don't know.
I feel like Hitman is so much more pressure.
Also, I feel like a round of Hitman is less time, and maybe it's just the time.
I don't know. I
don't
dawdle
know
in
if that's
Hitman
true.
for so long.
Yeah.
I dawdle like nobody's business.
I think I enjoy the doing more in this game. Like, in this game, your prep phase is fun mechanics with teleporting and stealth and whatever running around the map. In Hitman, it's like 20 minutes of like slow walking while I listen to things happen around me, right? And so when I enjoy the doing more here, it's more fun, you know?
Do
Okay.
you have likes and dislikes, Chris? So that
I mean, I feel like we know the
don't
likes.
miss you? That's true.
I like the open
Everything.
world. I mean, the main thing for me is the lore. I'm a Destiny fan, so I like having
Like
lore
the
that I
lore,
can puzzle
yeah.
at, and so that's my favorite part. And I think the other thing I liked most was the fact that there was a lot of effort put into those intermediate states I mentioned. I feel like it shows a lot more
I agree with that.
love for writing the game than if they just had like the start and the end.
Totally.
And so I think those are my 2 likes.
And you're like, I
Do I have
have
any
no
dislikes?
dislikes. Eat it.
I don't know that I have
Literally.
many dislikes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
I
You
know
don't
that
have
I
to.
do.
All right.
Okay,
don't know
so
that I
what's
do.
your recommendation? Yeah, give it a rating.
Out
Out of 5. A rating out of 5.
Oh, out of 5. I was gonna say. I'm gonna give it a 4.8.
That rounds up to 5. Don't even play with me right now, Christopher.
I mean, I can
You
imagine
didn't
a
even give it
version
a
of
5
it.
out of 5, and it's in your top
I know, and it's
games?
his top 5 games?
Well, I feel like I can imagine a 2 more years of work version of it that just scales out in more dimensions.
Okay, I see.
But other I think it's as perfect as it could have been given the time they spent on it.
Yeah.
Okay. 5 out of 5. 4.8. I'm so
Whereas
sorry.
when I play like Celeste, which is one of maybe my top game of all time,
I love
they
Celeste.
literally took Celeste to the absolute extent in every dimension, right? I cannot imagine a version of Celeste that is more than it was, right?
Celeste, like, I don't know if it's like really narcissistic of me, but like
It's because her name is Maddie.
Yes, an aspect of why I love that game so much is because the character has the same name as me. And I don't think it's the only
true.
reason. It's just that, like, I played that game when I was struggling a lot with anxiety, and the character is also. And so
Yeah.
it just,
the whole point.
it hit me, and it had the same name as me.
Yeah.
Top game.
Yep.
Top
Top
game.
game. Top game.
Top
all time.
game of all time. It's one of my top games of all time.
Yep.
I like have sometimes thought like, is that narcissistic of me? But a lot of people really like that game.
Honestly,
so.
It's
okay.
also my top game
That's
of all
okay.
time. So
Yeah, and she
it's
wasn't
one
named
of mine.
Chris,
I don't know if it's my.
so.
It's definitely in my top 5.
it's in my top 3
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Anyways,
Maddie, give us your rating.
I will give it. So I wrote down, and I don't know if this is gonna hurt Chris's feelings. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 when I was thinking about it, even though there was parts of it, like I said, that I really loved. But I think to Chris's point, I just didn't have as much fun doing. Like, I liked finding out and exploring and like learning, and I liked the lore, but I didn't actually have a ton of fun with the gameplay. And I think it's just because it was too overwhelming for me, a plebe who also like is not really good at first person shooters.
Mm-hmm. I would say if we had out of 10, I would feel better giving it a 7. A 7 is what I would give
agree.
it out of 10, which is a
It's
3.5.
really good.
Yeah, and so I know that that's not technically a score that we have, so I have to figure out what that looks like. That's fine. But I do feel like I'd give it a 7 out of 10, which to me is a very positive thing.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah, like I think it was a good game. I loved the complexities of the game. All of the likes that we've already talked about, I think they were super great. I think with some tweaks, then it would easily be an 8 for me, but I think it would take quite a few different things to get it up to like a 9+ for me.
I think I had the practice of mastering Dishonored.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you two will like Dishonored more if you decide to play that, because you have the practice of Deathloop.
Yeah.
They really are identical in their physical mechanics.
Yeah.
And so I think getting used to it makes a really big difference.
I will say, though, that if I had to rate my score on the delight of Chris's face every time I found something new, that would easily be a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Because he'd just sit there and giggle when something happened. He'd be like,
DK felt the same way when I was playing Outer Wilds. He was like, because that's like one of his favorite games of all time, and he was like peeking over, and I think it like really hurt his feelings when I got really frustrated about that game sometimes. There's moments in that game where I was literally like, out loud, I was like, I'm not having fun. Games are supposed to be fun. But it was when you, again, it's like one of those things where it was like, I love this game except for this like spot that I'm just too bad at video games to get past.
It's true. Chris constantly never has the skill issue that I have. It's true.
Yeah, I think if I could put a litmus test on like when I have issues with games, I really do feel like it boils down to skill issues, like more than half the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I play more games than you, Bridget. We just play different games, right? Like I have practice at shooters.
Yeah.
And you play other
I'm
games.
getting kind of okay at Halo. I'm
Yeah,
almost
you're doing really
silver.
You're doing really good.
It's exciting. Okay, we should wrap it up because this is a long-ass episode and I've got my nails
This is going to take me 10 years to edit.
I'm so sorry, Maddie.
I'm sorry, I had to talk about everything. There's so much lore.
That is good. It was good.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe and rate it. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Baddy Breakdowns, and visit our website, baddybreakdowns.com, made by Bridget. The podcast art was done by the wonderful Tanisha Vernikar, and it was edited by me, and I also made our theme music. Join us next time to hear us two baddies breakdown. I've already forgotten the name. Shit, and I didn't write it down.
I did. Kunitsu Gami, Path of the Goddess.
Perfect. Editor Maddie here. Next, we are actually playing Lorelei and the Laser Eyes after we got a very strong recommendation from a colleague. Okay, bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.